welcome to another edition of Real Estate Therapy. And I'm really excited today because I get to be here in person with my friend Julia, who is the organizing dispensation of stuff, miracle worker, big-hearted, so much fun to work with. And we're going to have a conversation about stuff. And
that's a perfect segue. Thank you very much for the compliments.
would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
I'm Julia Ritt. I have a company called Julia's Helping Hands, and I have been working for over 20 years with families and realtors with the mutual goal of clearing out homes and getting them ready for the marketplace.
Right, right.
There's a whole bunch in between all of that.
It's true. And what that sounds kind of simple, right? Like, oh, let's get the house ready for sale. And in fact, that tends to be such a big deal, and people aren't ready for it. And it is at the point of sale of a house often when people get around to it. They don't get around to it any sooner. They might have read Marie Kondo's book about...
She missed this section about hoarding and collecting and these kinds of things. Stuff is an issue, and there's 3 levels that I read about stuff. First, we're born and we look around and say, wow, look at all this stuff. The second level is I could buy a bunch of stuff. I'm going to buy a lot of stuff. And the third level is how do I get rid of this stuff? So you can imagine the pressure and the conflicting emotions for a family member to have to get rid of somebody else's stuff. And that's where the line is, the beginning of the process of trying to do it all by yourself. Mm-hmm. Because everything has a memory. Everything has feelings.
Yeah.
And even though we look at it and say, oh, it's just stuff. It's not. It's something,
not.
It's like in the real estate business when realtors say, yeah, I sell houses. Well, you're selling someone's home.
Right.
And in that home are so many memories that people can't separate from it. And then a child has to go in after a parent passes and try to make sense of all this stuff.
Right.
And feels a great responsibility to doing the right thing.
Right. And I actually was writing about this very morning and reminding myself of these 2, you've probably heard this before, but there's this thing called, what's the name of it? Mere ownership effect and endowment effect. These are 2 concepts that are very closely related. Endowment effect is when people own something that they love and they've imbued it with emotion and stories and meaning, and it causes them to tend to overvalue that thing. And mere ownership effect points to just the fact that you already own something, it's more valuable to you. So if I'm at a yard sale and I have this phone case for sale, if I'm having a yard sale, I'm going to say, I want $17 for this because I paid $25 when it was new. Nobody's going to buy this, right? Nobody's going to buy this.
No.
I could give it to them and they wouldn't take it, right? So it's, you're dealing with that kind of thing all the time.
Times 100%. Because everyone thinks that their stuff is worth a bunch of money.
Right.
And sometimes, surprisingly, it is. But most of the time, it is not. I mean, they buy artwork at a gallery down in Monterey from the gallery owner at retail plus. And they bought that piece for $5,000.
Right.
And really, the last time on auction, it went for $250.
Right.
And I get to tell them this wonderful story
Right.
and make their day. It's. I always say, did you love it? You loved it, you bought it, you
loved
enjoyed it.
Right.
Your parents loved it. That doesn't mean that you love it, that you want it. Clearly, if they're asking me to sell it, they don't want it.
Right.
So value is a very funny thing, and stuff and houses and everything that comes under that roof is so highly charged with emotion.
It is.
And I remember doing one of my very first estate sales. My sister was there as the cashier.
Mm-hmm.
And the family, all Italian family, all wanted to be a part of this estate sale. And I thought, oh, kumbaya, this is really great. You can do that room and you can do that room. And I thought, oh, this is going to be great. Well, the older sister comes in and says, I just want to let you know, Mom said I could have all the silver.
Oh, this sounds so familiar to me.
And that's all that of value that was in the house.
Oh, okay.
You know, it was just a sweet Italian house with plastic covering over the furniture. God bless them. And I said to her, well, how could that be that you get the silver and they get a coffee mug? How does that work? So, working that out with the family, and then we have the estate sale, and there's people coming in, and I hear this commotion upstairs. And one of the sons was crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what are you doing? There's no crying in estate sales. What's happening
Well,
here?
yeah, there must be.
Of course there's.
Yeah.
It was so naive. It was over 20 years ago. I
Right.
thought, and one of the people who came in had a hat on his head. It was his father's hat.
Oh.
And and I said, okay, wait a minute. First of all, line 1 in the contract, no family members can attend to the estate sales.
Right.
Number 2, Julia, where's your heart?
Right. Yes.
Do you remember your father's hat? I mean, I crumpled. I'm an Italian girl too. I crumpled and I
Right.
said, okay, wait a minute. I have to change this. I have to understand it. I really do. And I think I have. We've done enough things together where people, the owner, the wife had passed in San Francisco home, and his children were so lovely.
They were amazing.
I mean, don't you want to cry right now thinking,
Yes.
okay, I'm sorry.
I just remember
But
them.
they were so loving.
I remember them I remember sitting in the living room with the dad who had lost his wife and had to part with his house of 50 plus years. And his children all sitting there like they were in church or something, like so connected to him.
They're holding him up.
And feeling the feelings that they had about it. The loss of their childhood home, the loss of their mother. And it was so tender. It was that is one of the best parts of my job.
And mine as well. And also, the challenge, he was such a lovely man. And he was holding on to every fiber of that house. And
literally the shag carpeting on the floor that had to go.
I don't know what he did to the walls for the sound.
It was asbestos laden cottage cheese ceilings.
But he liked it and didn't want us to take it down because of the sound that it muffled from the street. And then
the carpet.
And I said,
the carpet too.
oh yes, everything was connected. But the realization, I thought, wow. I mean, it's now going from stuff to rugs and fiber. I mean, how am I going to work with this man? And then I started understanding him. He started walking us through the house. And, he put that ceiling up.
Mm-hmm.
He laid that carpet. He built with his own hands that addition. Part of his life, his skin, when people say, hey, does he have skin in the game? Oh yeah, he did. Every single room, everything he had fixed, he had created. Everything had a memory. And it was so heart-wrenching and warming to me. I thought, okay, now we go a little deeper. We've got to understand even more.
Yes, heart-wrenching and warming, and one of our main roles there, I realize now as you were talking, is to witness it and to hear him. He needed a chance to tell the story about how he'd added that bathroom in the closet without permit, I might add.
The lighting was very,
Right.
you were worried about a fire.
He had this elaborate kind of wooden security system on the back door. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
and he was so proud of all of it. And one of our roles was to hear it. The kids couldn't hear it. They weren't an objective audience.
No.
They couldn't appreciate it in the same way. Even if they did, he probably thought, they're the kids. Right? He has a whole history with them.
Yes.
But to have two strangers heretofore walk in and hear the stories was really important. And I think that helped him.
I think it helped them, and I think that one thing in life that no one teaches, there's many things, not just one, but one is how to forgive, never taught, got to figure that one out, but how to grieve. And what does that mean? We all have this, okay, well, it's been a year, get over it.
Right.
I
I can stop wearing black now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. I mean, it really is such a complicated thing, the grieving process, and what one goes through. When you left, underneath the house, as you know, was the size.
Was $75,000 worth of dry rot damage. But please,
and,
go ahead.
Yes. And every tool known to man, because he was a handyman. He talked to me and touched every single thing. And I thought, I'm here again. I'm part of his process. I'm here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Much more than clearing out, because that's a job that we do and we perform. And
Well, you hire someone to haul.
We have the haulers,
Right,
and we
right.
have all that. But this was really, I did never seen such a thing. And he would, in the middle of the night, he would load his car up and drive up to, I think it was Folsom where he moved, or that area up there, and unload the trunk. This is an 80-year-old man.
Right.
Unload the trunk of the car and drive all the way back before the kids found out that he was up there, so he could open the door for me in the morning.
Right.
This one all went on in the middle of the night. He was just a lovely soul, and I'm so glad he was happy with the process. I'm not sure if he would have ever really been happy with the process, but
No.
we did what we could do with dignity and love in our hearts. And I remember when I introduced you to them, I said, the reason I'm introducing this lady is because she has a heart.
Yes.
And that was really important. I said, you have to show them that heart of yours, because everyone's heart was on the table in this one.
I know.
It was really something. But and then you go on to the next, and you've got some new tools in your toolbox, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was all of that one thing that made the whole thing a lot more palatable is they got a lot of money for the house. I mean, $300,000 or $400,000 more than they could have imagined. And that, that helped.
It always helps.
That helped.
I remember saying to him, do you think that if I gave you $200,000 for that ceiling, you'd give it up? And he goes, well, when you put it that way, after 45 minutes of hearing about the cottage cheese, yeah, there's a human side to this too.
Right. I think the ceiling was worth $200, and I think the floors were worth, the carpet and redoing the floors, that was another $100.
Yeah, it really,
Right there.
Oh my goodness.
But, you helped me. This was when I first realized, I knew that getting help from somebody to get rid of your stuff would be valuable, but I had no idea how valuable. And you came over to my house, to that little basement area filled with my partner's tools, every tool known to mankind. My partner is a painting contractor, and our basement is filled with paint buckets, tarps, tools, paint, rag, you name it, it's down there. And then I had my stuff that I was trying to get rid of, purge. And you came and you helped me with anything that felt sentimental. You'd be kind of like, well, do you love it? And I'd be, no. And I was able to let go. You took the things that needed to be donated, you took them away.
Immediately.
That day. I was like, really? You're taking them now? You took them, you donated them, you hauled a bunch of stuff, And then there were a few items that you sold, and here's where I'm going with this. Talk about value, like somebody goes to a Monterey art gallery and spends $5,000. I, as a real estate agent, I love to go to like Home Goods and Ross Dress for Less, and like pick up tchotchkes and towels and pillows and things, maybe some art that I can use for emergency staging, right? You know, it's just always good to have. And it's fun to shop at those stores.
I'm buying fillers for
Right.
another house.
Yeah. Here I go. And I bought this big red metal flower. It was like a geranium, big red metal flower. And for like $8. And I used it for years, and there it was in the basement. And I said, oh, take that and see if you can sell it or give it away, whatever. I had absolutely no attachment to it. So a month or two goes by, I'm just minding my own business, and I check the mail, and there's an envelope from you. Like, oh, this is from Julia. What could this be? I'd totally forgotten. And I opened it, and there was a check, right, for the stuff that you had sold for me, and you had a receipt. And somebody had paid like $50 for that flower. I couldn't believe it.
Now you want it back. Get that back.
I made a profit.
You made a profit.
I did, I made a profit. But
Somebody loved it just like you did, only wanted to throw some money at it.
Right. But by contrast, like, you know, we did another house about that same time where the owner had a Steinway grand piano. I don't know if you remember it. It was.
I remember him, I remember all of it.
It was amazing. We'll talk a little bit about that. But this piano, nobody would take the piano.
Right.
Nobody. And we ended up donating it to Flower Piano at the San Francisco Botanical Garden, which is the yearly thing where they have pianos outside and people play them.
It's a beautiful thing, yeah.
In
During
the
the
garden.
spring, yeah.
That was the only, other than that, it was gonna go in the dump. It was gonna go.
You know, and because the whole casing had been destroyed by
Yes.
him, and, you know, water damage and all of that. But that house, again, he was an incredible artist. And it was a funky house, it needed a lot of work.
I have a bunch of his art
I know you
that
did.
he was gonna throw away, just stacked up.
I took everything that I could sell. I even found things outside and on the patio. We had such an estate sale there. I think we did over $30,000 in revenue in that house. But one of the most beautiful things of that weekend was that a young man came in. I would say young man in his 30s came in. And we were all bustling around. There's people poking at everything and trying to buy and make a deal. So there's a lot of noise going on in the background. And the guys were downstairs in that garage, selling out of the garage. It was really a busy day. And all of a sudden, that man sat down at that piano.
Oh, really?
And everyone stopped. It was silent. Hearing him. He was a student of this man.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he played that piano. How many people did he teach and change his life? Again, it's not a house, it's a home.
And that piano was so meaningful.
Oh,
I mean, pianos have souls to begin with.
It was right in the middle of the room in the entryway. It had probably sat hundreds of young kids' tushes on that bench. And from the very beginning, learning their first keys and how to put their hands on the piano. I mean, really think about it. That place was silent. And it was like, what is happening here? This beautiful music coming out of this piano. It was another fabulous experience, something I've learned a lot about. He moved, I've been moving so many seniors across country, leaving not only their homes, but leaving the state in which they lived for so long, because it's expensive to be here. And that's a big transition, and that's really hard. It's one thing if someone passes, you know, and the torch is given, right? But this is having to leave everything that they know.
Right.
And it's been a very difficult time since the pandemic. I once told you a story, I'm going to tell you again about this, talking about a learning situation.
Mhm.
I went into a home where a man had just lost his beautiful wife. He called her his bride.
Mhm.
That's how much he loved her. And again, a family who was very committed, dutiful, loving family. And now, but his kids lived up north, and they wanted him to move out of this house, closer to them, up in Santa Rosa. And he loved the place up there. So it was he and I for about a week going through all his things.
Mhm.
And he's this beautiful, long drink of water, voice for radio man. He was a scientist, so everything was very specific. And he would watch me go through things and pack them. I wasn't going to have an estate sale there. I was taking his things to another estate sale because he just didn't want people in the house like that. And so we would chat every day. And one day he said, and this is way before the pandemic, by the way. This is maybe 15 years ago. And he says, you know, Julia, you know what people die of? I said, well, George, I said, people die of a lot of things. He goes, not really. Not really. He says, people die of loneliness and broken hearts. I said, and what do you mean? He says, well, when your wife dies, he says, your heart is so broken and you're isolated all by yourself, with no one to talk to. He says, pretty soon, you're not moving around as much as you do. You're sitting in your easy chair. You're not eating really well. And pretty soon your body is just slowing down till it's all over. He said, we are social beings. We have to be around people. I said, well, I'm really proud of you. You're very brave to be moving to this new community.
And that's so key, because I see it all the time where people get kind of trapped in their house, and maybe the kids move out and suddenly they're down to the kitchen and their bedroom.
That's right.
That's it. Everything else is storage. Everything else is like cold storage,
Yeah.
right? and they go back and forth between the bedroom and the kitchen, and years go by, and they don't get on top of it. And pretty soon their world gets narrower and narrower and smaller and smaller. I mean, I knew one woman who definitely had some hoarding issues. Her husband was disabled, had been disabled for a long time, and had almost full-time care coming into their home. But she, I loved her. She's since moved in with her brother and sister-in-law, and the house is being repaired because so much maintenance had been deferred. There was water coming in to the room. It was terrible. And she intends to move back in. But through these years of her husband's disability, she had started hoarding things, and she had half of her bed had piles of books on it, and she would just slide into the little sliver of bed that was left at night, and the kitchen, that was it
Well,
for her.
a lot of times I go into these homes and the rooms are so hoarded, and so they're sitting on a couch with an ottoman, that's their bed, and their blanket, and a TV in front of them. And I always say that that generation is very different than our generation and our children's generation. But they were brought up as, I'm going to live and die in this house.
Right.
And even with caretakers there, and they don't really engage that much. They pretend that they're engaging, but they're not. They're
On
their
their
TV's on, they're on their phone, they're doing laundry, for their family. They're just not engaged. When this one man who was saying every day he'd go and have lunch with his mother, and I said, when are you going to get your mom out of this apartment? She lived right next door to me. He said, well, she's got people here. I said, they're not doing anything. She's just laying there all day. She should be up, go for a walk, come out to the piazza here, get some sun. He took it to heart, and they found a home, another community for her. And I saw him when he was taking the last boxes out of the apartment. I said, so how is it going? He says, I don't know, I don't see her. She's downstairs with the girls with a happy hour playing bingo. I don't know. He says, I've never seen her. All of a sudden the twinkle's back in her eyes again. And we're not doing our parents any favors, like leaving them in their home and thinking, well, this person's doing it. We have to get out. So this man, George, I drive him to Santa Rosa. Now this is the big trip. You know, he's now gonna move. The movers are already there. His room is already set up. His kids are in the parking lot and he and I are there. I said, are you okay? I could tell he was full of anxiety.
Oh.
And we pulled up and the door opens and there they are. All these women dressed to the nines. Earrings, lipstick on.
They have their lipstick on.
Oh yes, they have their lipstick on. And I said, George, today's a good day. If anything happens, today's a good day. And the smile came on his face, and he's doing well still to this day, so he must be in his 90s, you know. But he had another story to tell in his book, right? So, you know, to isolate ourselves, we've learned from the pandemic, it's not going to work well. And getting back to stuff isolates us, and I'll tell you how.
It impedes us. It keeps us from going on to the next thing that we need to do.
It's crippling.
It's like an anchor, just keeping you rooted to a place or things that really don't serve us anymore. So tell me.
What comes from stuff is that when you create and collect more stuff, you stop having people over, including as you get older. You stop having people over the house because you can't take care of your stuff.
My uncle would say, you know, people would try to come over and he'd be like, no, the furnace isn't working, or, you know, it's Saturday.
Yeah. Anything.
To keep people from coming in.
Yes.
He was one who moved to assisted living. Now he's like the belle of the ball.
See?
He's running the book club, they're doing theater.
Stuff gets in our way. It isolates us, it makes us feel, first of all, it brings us immediate satisfaction. And I've never been a big purchaser of stuff, you know. I mean,
Which must be very tempting in your business.
Oh my goodness, everybody says, why, oh my gosh, you love it, why don't you take it? I said, that's their stuff. I don't want their stuff coming to my house and then becoming my problem.
Right.
I can love it while I'm selling it. And then I enjoy it. I mean, how lucky am I to see amazing things in people's homes and funny things in people's homes. The things that people say are beyond, you know, why. But they do, you know, those little, that's what the man in San Francisco did. He never threw away those ties on, you know, those things that you tie your bread up.
Right,
Those,
like twist ties.
those twist, oh, thousands. Or the little strawberry baskets. Oh, you don't throw those away.
Oh, those, right.
Piles of them. Jars, lids that go to nothing.
Well, he also had an amazing wine collection.
Oh, he did.
And it was, what do we do with the wine? And we had someone from the Wine Institute came to evaluate it and to ostensibly purchase it or take it for donation or something. That was a really sobering, no pun intended, moment for me, because I met the guy from the Wine Institute in the evening, and I helped him pull all of this wine out from underneath
And it was
the
a
stairs,
lot of it. Oh.
cases, and all of it was bad. All of it had gone bad. And he said, we'll take this donation, which was a kindness of him to take it off our hands. And we'll use it as an example of
how you don't store
how
things.
you don't store it and how wine can go bad, and we'll use it for tasting, you know.
Yeah.
And I know that he would have been very sad to know that, but he'd already moved on by then, so we didn't.
You know, there's a lot of things that, again, people just don't throw away. The man who was the artist and the pianist, I mean, downstairs, was art supplies for days, days and days. And we could sell 1 tube of this. So I called the Arts Institute, and the young students came out with their cars. And I said, you know, could we just sell half a paper and all those canvases and, you know, and we just, so at least they got new homes for them.
Well, that's the thing. I heard this once on, and I tend this way. I've gotten better, but I'll think, wow, you know, I might need that sequined jacket if I'm ever invited somewhere where I could wear it. I better save it. And I heard someone talking about this, I think it was on Fresh Air, Terry Gross talking about, with a guest, about like you're saving these old sweaters just in case there's an apocalypse or something, you know, it's gonna be cold, you're gonna need the sweater. And in fact, let somebody else use that sweater that you're not wearing, because their life is an apocalypse. They're on the streets, they're cold.
When it comes to women in clothing, it's a whole different thing. I'm working with an octogenarian who has Prada and Chanel and the most fancy, you know, heels that are all Swarovski crystal. Okay, she's deep into her 80s. She tried each of them on. I thought she was going to break her ankle. I'm like, whoa, right? But she tried on everything. So belts that, you know, they're fantastic. She goes, well, if I could just lose 40 pounds. Oh,
right.
I said, honey,
right.
You know, in the meantime, if you lose 40 pounds, you're going to want to buy new clothing.
You're going to want a new belt.
You're going to want a new belt, which she has probably 150.
Right.
You know, we keep things in thinking of that was the girl back in the day, the thoughts. I mean, I do it too. I think, oh, I remember when I could fit into that but that's not who we are today. And again, it's stuff getting in our way. Just stuff gets in our way.
And on our own, we have a really difficult time assessing present value. Like objectively, what is the present value of this pillow, right? You know, nobody's gonna, this is great for some purpose, but nobody's gonna buy this.
No, and on the other hand, when you go, and thank goodness I have, when you bring a third party in who's not emotional about your stuff,
they can be objective.
They can be objective. And there are things, she goes, what am I gonna get, 50 cents for this? I said, why do you think 50 cents? Hold please, let me take out my app. Because I have all the apps of, you know, all the auction houses. And I said, well, that is now vintage.
Right.
And now, you know, this is selling for $300.
It's like my red flower.
Yeah, your flower, see?
I'm like, $50.
I mean, it's amazing because things change and trends change. I mean, when I grew up, my parents' place was all mid-century furniture. And my mother was like, you know, I'm over this crap.
This crap, right, exactly.
Now,
whoa,
hello. I mean, I'm going to a home where this woman, this weekend, where a woman has been giving away her mid-century modern furniture on that app. I think it's buynothing.com or something. I said, why would you be doing that? I said, please don't give away anything anymore. I said, I want to create money for you. So, because you're going to be selling this condo, it needs to be painted, it needs to be updated. Let's make some money to offset this. I mean, seriously, please stop. Don't do anything. I'll be there in 48 hours. Leave it alone. But so they don't know. They don't know what the value is. They think it's garbage, and really it's something significant, including when it comes to art, Asian art. No, you know, it's very difficult to know. You think, oh, it's just and it turns out to be something very significant.
Right.
So bringing in somebody who is a professional at this, and who can tell you comes with a completely different set of eyes on it, is really essential.
And somebody who can be empathic and really try to connect with where the person's coming from. I mean, this is what you do. I've seen you do this, and I try to do it in my work. To understand, you know, a person who's an empty nester is very different from, say, a single woman who's on dating apps trying to find a partner.
Yes.
Those are two very different people, and they need us to attune to them.
Absolutely, even if it's completely ridiculous.
Right.
but really,
exactly.
I think it has to do with any entrepreneur or someone who's passionate about what they're doing. If you lose your heart in this, if you are thinking and feeling something, and it's difficult because it's an emotional job. I mean, I go into places and I can feel the loss so heavy. Sometimes mom is still in the other room, in the hospital bed. She hasn't even passed.
Right.
and we're having this discussion, and as cruel as it might sound or whatever, these families are saying, hey, we have to get a jump start on this.
Right.
Mom's alive, we can still talk to her. Who do you want this to go to?
What are her wishes?
Yes, it's a conversation, again, going from the beginning of this, our conversation, are things that aren't taught to us. It's taboo. We don't talk about these things. And then all of a sudden you're in a situation. You want to be able to say, let's go through those family albums of 5,500 pictures that we have. Who are these people? Because I'll tell you, if that's important to you, because family photos are really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's important to you, when I die, if my kids don't know who those people are, I'll trash out. That's
Right.
where it's going.
Right.
If it's something important, sit with your kids where you can and say, I want to tell you the story of this significant person in this picture.
Right.
You know, so that, or it will just go away.
Well, I mean, one trick is to go through the 10,800 photos and you know, save the ones that are important or meaningful, toss the rest.
That's
But
right.
one little trick I learned, and I don't know if it was from you, but when I'm having a hard time getting rid of something, I'll take it out, look at it, appreciate it, remember where I got it or why it's important, take a photo.
That's right.
And then trash, Goodwill, recycle, give it to somebody, leave it on the street. If I leave anything in front of my house near Dolores Park, on the street, it's gone.
Don't you remember we had the whole lineup?
I know.
That was so cute.
In front of the fence, we had a whole lineup of stuff, gone,
Gone.
There's one thing that didn't go. I'm trying to remember, I think it might have been one of my vintage cookie jars, which cookie jars just
It didn't.
weren't, you know.
But that art, they were walking down the street with your art. It was like, there it goes to a new home, new memories, new place.
I ended up taking the thing back and keeping it. But just taking the photograph of stuff was like, I said, okay, I'm gonna save this so I can remember it. Have I ever looked at those images, ever, since then? No,
Never.
I have not, I probably never will. But the ritual of taking the photo was the thing.
Yep,
It's
that's
like-
exactly what you do. And you know, another thing, I'll tell you about two things about stuff. The worst thing about stuff is when people take that stuff and then put it into a storage. To me,
yeah.
that is the worst thing you could ever do. Because
Just say no to storage.
no,
Right.
the storage situation is out of control. And of course the storage people are just loving it because they're just, they're just taking money every month. And by the way, we raised it 33%. We're just taking money. You don't even know what's happening.
Right.
I opened up a storage unit from 1972 up in Pacifica.
Time capsule.
And it was the biggest storage unit I'd ever seen in my life. And the woman had moved from New York with New York antiques that were spectacular and put it into the storage unit in Pacifica, an outside storage unit.
Oh, no.
And when we got there, she hadn't opened it since 1972. You know, she spent $280,000
On the storage.
on the storage.
Wow.
And when we opened it, well, beyond having to cut all the locks because they were so rusted we couldn't get, it's very moist up there.
Mhm.
And they blew the leaves, you know how they do, all the leaves were going underneath. We were waist deep in rats and leaves.
That is
And there was
nightmarish.
nothing left. They had eaten through everything. Nothing left except the wrought iron.
whoa.
And people have to understand cardboard is for moving, it is not for storage.
Right.
Because that's a home, not a house, a home for the rats and the
Yeah.
mice and little critters. And you think that,
That's bad when you lift a box and there's a little
oh yeah,
rustling guy.
Oh.
That's happened to me.
we were flinging them. They were dead and they were petrified and it was, and talk about tragic, she's looking at this
Oh.
and it was all gone. So this, not only did the stuff get in her way, it cost her over $200,000, which she could have done with this money as an elderly woman with no children, all alone.
Right. The moral of the story, don't
Don't,
use a storage.
no. And
Container.
the sooner that you can get yourself, into, a pattern of every day going to see mom and dad and saying, hey, let's go look at the room upstairs. I did it with my parents.
Mhm.
When I got divorced, every other weekend, I had no kids. He took the kids. I went to my parents' house. I said, let's go look at all those photos. Who are these people?
That's great.
And I organized everything. When my parents passed, I had an envelope for each of our siblings. Here's your life.
Oh.
Here's our life. It was
What
there.
a gift.
And everything in those packages were meaningful. The rest of it was cleaned up.
Right.
It was so, third party is not a bad idea.
Third party is the best way to go, and that being you. We've had so many great experiences because you've been able to, with a lot of heart, thoughtfulness, and skill, clear out a house so that then we can come in and do the theater that makes it current and exciting for buyers.
Absolutely.
And, buyers aren't looking to buy that old memory, that old place.
But
They
people
want
are
a
afraid.
dream.
People
It's a
are
dream.
afraid of cost too, and I always say this to them.
Right,
Here we are, and here's the pot of gold
right,
at the end of the rainbow, and there's all this crap in between.
right.
I'm going to help you with that part. And really, at the end of all of it, including with the real estate today and pricing, we come out to be 0.1%.
Yes,
And the money that I create out of that house, I'm free. I show them how to do it. You do it together. And then you can do your magic, which is brilliant. So, but we can't get to that point without all clearing this whole thing out. We've seen some incredible things together, I think,
know.
and homes that and sometimes I get links from you. You'll say, what do you think? I'm like, oh, it's a nice house. Where is it? That's the house we did together
Right.
3 months ago. I go, unrecognizable. So it really is a partnership with the realtor, with everybody involved, the family, everybody. But if at the end of all of this, everybody should really open some drawers now and then in their home, every 6 months. And if you haven't worn it, or if you haven't used it,
And you don't love it.
if you don't love it, even the love of things, it's like, some things you just like because you need it.
Right.
I don't love my appliances. I just
Right.
use them. But I have a lot of things. I have gadgets. I don't use those gadgets. But because I'm at estate sales all the time, I say, what is this? What could this possibly be a gadget? A little thing. But my son says, I think you're a hoarder of gadgets.
Right.
It's horrifying. He goes, do you ever use them? I go, no, I don't even know what it's for. That's the excitement of it. I have to find out what it's for.
Yeah.
But, that's a little problem.
I think we ought to do I'd love to have that be like on my social media, Julia's gadget of the week.
Yeah.
Like people could send in their
What do they
guesses.
think it is?
What is it?
I used to come home when I was buying for an antique store. I used to come home with things for the boys. And I'd say, if whoever can tell me what this is, can have it. And,
Or the most creative answer.
it made them and forced them to stop and research.
Mhm.
And they're both great researchers. They're not the kind that just go on Yelp and say, well, this guy says this is good. They really research things.
Mhm.
And it's a fun thing to do. Research is very fun. Because you cannot, including with Google Lens today, you find out something in a nanosecond. But they would stop and really have to think about it and look at it.
Right.
Some
I love
things we
it.
still don't know what it is.
I love
I
it.
know.
Well, I think we're almost out of time, which is really sad because I could keep on talking and listening to you for hours. Hopefully we get to do a project together soon.
We're going to.
But usually we have a story of the week, but I think we've told a lot, there've been a lot of stories today. And I don't know, can you think of one, something that we shared? I'm trying to remember, I was thinking of that one house where the daughter wanted to have a yard sale. Like you did all your work and then, I don't know if you were there, but I'm telling a story.
Yeah, you tell the story. I want to hear the story.
So, the owner had become basically trapped in her home. She could not do the stairs anymore, and it was time to move on. Long story short, you came, you worked your magic, you cleared everything out, and then I came behind trying to start working on the house to get it painted and staged and everything. And I think you were out of the picture at this point. There were a few items that had lingered behind because the daughter wanted to have a yard sale to sell some of her late father's possessions. And she kept postponing it and saying, I can't do it this weekend. And then I can't do it this weekend. And meanwhile, the market was cooling off rapidly. Like I could see the price going down on the house. So we're waiting for her to have her yard sale before we could stage. And her late father had all this fishing equipment. Well, she had her yard sale for 2 days. Nobody bought the fishing gear. So finally, I said to my ex-husband, could you go over there and just buy the fishing gear, right?
Make it go away.
Yeah, so he did. He bought all of the rods and the flies and all the stuff. He bought it, he got a good deal on it. And then a couple of years later at Christmas, my ex-husband gave me and my partner matching fly rods.
He recycles them.
It was great.
He regifted.
It was great. And they were beautiful, bamboo rods that they don't make them like that.
No, they don't make them like that anymore.
So, anyway, that's my story.
That's your story. Well, listen, I really have enjoyed so much talking with you. It's been too long since we've seen each other.
Mm.
And I love this whole idea of real estate, therapy. Because really, it's so unique. It's such a great idea, and I think that people are going to get a lot out of it.
I hope so.
I know they will.
And you have to come back.
I'll come
You
back.
have to come back.
We'll pick another topic.
Yeah, I've already thought, I didn't write them down, but I thought of a few. Tell people where they can find you.
You could find me like a phone number.
Yeah, or I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, okay.
But
Julia's Helping Hands. Julia's with an S and hands with an S. .com. That's my website.
Julia's Helping Hands.
.com.
Perfect.
And if any questions or anything, I can leave a comment and I can answer them right off the website.
Sounds beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was fun.
All right.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.